RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. In today's episode, we are breaking down the fifth episode, son already, 5 episodes in, amazingly, of this series, Furious, on FX, Hulu. No, it's not FX. I'm sorry. It's not FX on Hulu. So confusing. It's just Hulu and Disney. Joining me for this conversation, as usual, for all these conversations about Furious, is Sona. How are you doing, Sona?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I had a couple of pieces of news about the Patreon.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so I don't know anything about Patreon.
Nor do I. I just discovered there are chats on it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So to that very point, that I'm just grabbing my phone so I can shout out everybody I want to shout out. Basically, the long and short of it is that Susie, a couple of weeks ago probably, was saying, hey, where did everybody go? There's no chats going on here. And I did want the folks to be able to chat, obviously, on the Patreon. One of the appeals of being the network and talk to each other and discuss the podcast and discuss other things you're watching and recommend things to us directly. And I didn't know how this worked. So Paul, thank you, Paul, once again, reached out. And Susie, of course, for asking for this as well. Paul says, is it okay if we have chats in the Patreon? I'm like, oh, that would be awesome if you guys want to have chats on there. So just yesterday, I think it was, or 2 days ago, that I was like, oh, I have to create a chat so people can chat.
It turns out.
Within the chat. So I'm like, oh, let me just create some general chats. And Paul actually sent me an example of another Patreon that had this set up. So I just created some categories. And now I've created even more chats. I have one just about Furious, so people can discuss Furious here as well. And I'll probably do it for other shows we cover in the future. So, obviously the conversation can be more structured. And as soon as I created those chats, Sona, people started chatting. So I'm loving having the conversation. Sona, you should go and read them. People have been chatting you out on there as well. So feel free to participate in those conversations.
I have participated just today.
Oh, did I?
Just 2 hours ago.
I must be behind. I must be behind. There we go. Oh, there you go. I see your comment here, the last scene. So I will catch up on all that, and I have been responding to folks on there as you probably already saw. But Paul, thanks for bringing this up, and everybody for participating on there. And so happy to see that people are enjoying the conversation, and we'll do more of it. You could participate in the Cape Fear one I created today. It was like, what the hell is that? But and of course, generally movies. Anyway, all this is just another pitch for everybody to join the Patreon. It's free, of course. There will be a paywall soon, by the way, just announcing it. So if there's anything you want to listen to before the paywall goes up, do check it out now. So join and listen to those episodes. However, the community, the conversation will always be free, and you guys can discuss anything you want on there. So do join so you can take part in that. And love the fact that everybody's chatting on there. Sona, Susie brought something up that I have been wanting to recommend to you multiple times, and somehow I forgot to mention it to you, and she mentioned that I should recommend it to you. And it's The Invite. Have you heard about The Invite?
I have heard of The Invite, but I have no idea what it really is.
You should probably not know anything about it. It's the best way to watch the film. This is from A24, so it's just available for rent tomorrow, I think. So if you wanted to rent it, but since it's A24, they have a deal with HBO. So within the next few weeks, you should catch up with this on HBO. Oh, and by the way, recently available on HBO, another film you would probably like is The Drama with Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. Have you heard of this one? This is another one of those films that was just The Drama. And it is, again, another movie that you're like, you shouldn't know too much going in. And it's become a huge hit, mostly because people are saying they wanted to get people's opinion of this. But basically, it is a couple. They are preparing for their wedding. And on the cusp of their wedding, they all go out and conversation starts at dinner time and someone says, like, asks the question, like, what's the worst thing you ever did? And everybody goes around the table and comes up with their terrible things that they did. And one of this couple, I won't even spoil who it is, Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, although you probably know if you saw the trailer, but I won't spoil it for you, that one of them says something they did when they were younger. And it is simultaneously a great conversation starter because it's simultaneously something that is absolutely horrible and then not horrible because they didn't fully commit to this thing, let's just say, right? And so I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it was a real conversation starter.
Intriguing.
Yes, very intriguing. And this is why it became such a hit in theaters. They tried to
how can I watch this?
This is on this. I'm sorry. This is on HBO right now. It just premiered a couple of weeks ago, maybe just last week. So do check that one out if you want to talk about it on the pod. Darren also wants to talk about that. So maybe we'll all have a roundup of conversation, or maybe we just talk about it on Patreon. That's another place we can do it. But this is now available to rent, this other movie, which is The Invite, which also A24 tried to promote it as don't know too much about this film. And it did pretty well, but not as well, I think, as everybody wanted it to, I believe, although it's been a solid hit. I think it's made around $40 or $50 million worldwide and still rolling out around the world. But now in the US, available to rent, it should be on HBO within about a month or so. And Sona, you would love this. This is two couples. They are getting together for dinner. That's the whole thing. It's four people in an apartment in San Francisco. And the couple is Olivia Wilde, who also directed the movie, by the way. Huge comeback for her based on... I actually did not hate Don't Worry, Darling. I don't think you hated that one either. Although many people hated that movie.
No, it left me a little unsettled and I thought it was kind of weird, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I think maybe she was a little ambitious where her skill level was, although I did think it was visually really an interesting film. But I wasn't fully successful for sure. But this is a much smaller film, and she directs again, and it is excellent. And she may very well get a nomination, if not for the directing, maybe for her performance. I do hope that this is a comedy primarily, and I do hope that it gets nominations. But long story short, Sona, it is a couple. They are preparing to have, they're having a double date basically with another adult couple, and they do not have any kind of social life in their upper middle class lifestyle. And they invite their neighbors, who they're very intrigued by, played by Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz. And the four of them are in this room, and it is those type of movies that I have some that I'll probably put on a recommendation list somewhere, where every once in a while, where it's like two couples and you feel the power dynamic change from over the course of just these conversations. And the reveal of what's actually going on is intriguing. I don't want to oversell that. Everybody's kind of selling this as it has a twist. It doesn't have a twist. It's just that there's more of an agenda to this meetup than it presents itself early on. So there's a little bit of that to it, but it continuously surprises you just in the conversation and dynamic changes between the characters. And it is so much fun and it is so funny, but like cringe inducing and by the way, great performances. The other couple, I haven't mentioned this yet. The other couple, the other half of the couple of Olivia Wilde's couple is Seth Rogen. And he oftentimes plays, the kind of character, and every once in a while, like in Take This Waltz, another film that I highly recommend, by the way, when he's in a relationship with Michelle Williams, that every once in a while he gives an actual performance and you forget, like, wow, this guy's a really good actor, right? And he is very funny. And I heard an interview with Olivia Wilde, and a lot of his quips and a lot of the cutting things that the couple say across each other, all of them were improvised, and she used that. So the improvisation's really, really good, but the core script is really good. And it is, I think this is the type of movie that you love. So you should check it out.
They both sound great. If I have to decide which one to watch first, which would you recommend?
Knowing you, Soda, you should watch the drama first because it's available for free on HBO Max.
Wait, do I have to pay for the other one?
Yes, the other one's available for rent.
Oh, I'm not seeing that one for a while. Okay.
No, but that's what I was going to say. This, because of the A24 deal, within a month or so, it should be on HBO also. All the A24 movies, they pop up on HBO. They have a deal. So.
All right. So I can watch the drama.
Watch the drama now.
As well. Okay.
And prepare for the invite. And don't get spoiled on it. I think now that it's available for rent, everyone's going to start spoiling stuff. Don't get spoiled on it. Really just go in and just like, oh, it's a dinner party, and leave it at that, because it's really a lot of fun to watch.
Okay, speaking of dinner parties, now I'm off on a tangent because I got a little bit confused. Do you remember a movie, I think it was called The Invitation?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? Which was similar, like there's a dinner party.
It's a much bigger dinner party there. That is a horror film.
It's a bigger dinner party, and it's a horror film. Yeah. So I liked that movie also.
Yes.
While we're talking about movies that refer to invitations and dinner parties, that is also an older, good horror movie. I'm not sure where one would watch it, but I did enjoy it.
Oh, by the way, you and I didn't know this, Sona, but just like 2 or 3 years ago, there was a movie called The Invitation, which was a horror movie, but it's more like a teen horror movie. The Invitation that Sona's talking about is probably at least 10 years old at this point, and it takes place in Los Angeles. And
right.
If it's a bunch of women in frilly frocks and vampires, that's the wrong invitation. we're talking about The Invitation from about 10 years ago, which is
middle-aged people at a dinner party. People,
that's right, at a dinner party, which and that dinner party doesn't not go to plan. Or actually it goes to plan, but not everybody's on board with that plan, let's say. But that's also very good. True. All right, so now speaking of very good, what did you think of, a spoiler from my opinion, of this current episode of Furious?
I continue to love this show so much. I really just think it's excellent. I love the different storylines, the overall plot, the underlying themes, all of it, even though I'm not sure I entirely understood part of it this week, but hopefully you can explain it to me.
I have many notes, so hopefully it's in there somewhere. And I have many questions for you, actually, about some of the things that occurred here. So maybe they're similar.
A lot happens this week.
A lot of stuff happens. I want to start off by complimenting the show that we have talked about multiple shows here. We're talking about Lucky right now, and it's kind of gone a little bit off the rails after having a really strong start.
Yeah, I remember you really liked it.
And then also just so many shows that we cover here. I mean, just to name one, obviously Cape Fear, but Your Friends and Neighbors, 2 very high-profile shows that we covered that, for me, felt like they introduced so much plot. There's so much plot and so many things happening with characters. And it's almost like they're filling up the plate, but then so much of it gets ignored by the end because the story ends up being like this other thing that wasn't even mentioned, or just this tiny little sliver of the original plot. And I got so used to all this very messy plotting. I am just so impressed that this show is now, we're 5 episodes in, so we're
out of 8, right?
Out of 8, correct. Yeah. There's only 3 more to go. And that everything pays off and everything is thematically relevant, and every little thing that's been set up until this point, even within this episode, pays off, sometimes right within the episode itself. And I was just so impressed at how tightly plotted and planned this episode is, except for, and we heard from Ian last week, I forwarded you that email, except for like some of the logistics of, can you actually park that conveniently in New York? Okay, well, we'll look the other way on that one.
Right. Because it's just so good that I'll let it go.
Right. Especially this episode, which was, I thought, the best episode we've had in this show. Usually when a lot of plot is happening, it feels like the show is just trying to like cram things down your throat, like trying to move things forward or clean up.
Or they got their pacing wrong and they realize that they only have a limited amount of time left to tell the rest of the story.
Yeah. And for me, I'm like, no, there's a lot of stuff happening, but because it's just paying off all these things that have been set up throughout the season so far. I'm very impressed with the show. So if anybody out there just listens to the banter and then drops off, and I know there's some of you, by the way, then just watch this show already. Just commit to it. Because, by the way, you might want to wait one more week because I wish there was another episode available. I cannot wait to see what happens after the cliffhanger at the end of this episode.
RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
All right, Sona, my first question, what did you think about the cold open to this episode? They have this situation where we're picking up immediately from where we left off last week.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine is like in bed with Alden. She's touching him. She's describing what it feels like. She describes it as pins and needles coming back to her fingertips. And
by the way,
yeah.
I'm impressed that if she really has had no feeling in her fingertips, she's had the dexterity to shoot everybody up with fentanyl this entire time. That feels like a fine motor skills thing that you would need fingertips for.
I did think that might be a bit of a red herring, or I should say a plot hole actually here.
Right?
Because of that as well. But I mean, I guess you could, she might use the side of her thumb or something,
Maybe,
But it does seem like, if she supposedly is so good at what she does that he doesn't even feel when she injects him, and she's doing that with numb fingertips. Seems like a reach, but we'll forgive it once again.
Yes, we'll let it go.
And loved this opening scene, like something out of a horror movie, by the way, where she's like, "I have a secret." He's like, "I have a secret." "Oh, you go first." "Oh, will you marry me? I love you," whatever. And she's like, "Oh my God." And she's, "Oh, well, now you tell me your secret." And see this violent montage of her dragging this guy into the house. He's just going through withdrawal. And then we get the title, Furious. I was like, again, the perfect mix of like this earnestness and this emotional moments and the plotting. And then like this almost the comedic aspects to it, surprising.
I mean, also, we picked up where we left off, but some time has elapsed. So kind of weird to be like, I left my uncle out in the car this entire time.
Right. I, again, assume that she had dragged him in at some point in the interim, because it seems unlikely that she would be like, "Oh, let me just run out real quick, go grab him." But
I don't know. We saw her bringing him in then.
We do. I just don't know if that happened. Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah,
I think that might have been filling in the blanks, because at least that's how I read it, because it seemed a little more believable than she would crawl into bed with him and then be like, "Oh, wait a second, I got one more thing I got to do." Drag a body into the house. So my first question to you was not only how did you think that opening sequence played out, but more importantly, how do you read this? Is she manipulating him because she's getting not only emotionally what she wants from him, but potentially financially what she might need from him on potentially here? So is that a manipulation, or is it sincere, or is it both things at the same time, which I think is what the show asks repeatedly?
I feel like these two have kind of a mutual understanding that they have a genuine fondness for each other. They both are in not ideal circumstances, although for very different reasons, and that there is a lot to be gained practically, but also emotionally from bonding together like this. I feel like maybe they're not explicitly saying it out loud, but this relationship is kind of transactional, but also based on some genuine affection between them.
You know what I thought about here? We might be able to watch this as part of this, depending on how our calendar lines up for the next thing we'll be covering. We might watch the Black Widow movie that this is loosely based on from 1987 with Deborah Winger in the police officer role. In that movie, the Black Widow marries and then kills rich men for their money. It's like so that it's not because of some vendetta that she has. I mean, she might have broadly a vendetta against men, but it's not specifically to avenge someone's death, for example, like we have here. And it did make me think, as we're watching this, if the season ends with her somehow escaping capture, and she has the resources that Alden has left her. Let's say that they did get married on paper, and now he has set her up maybe through his computer skills with a fake identity and transferred some money to her, etc. That is this like an origin story for the Black Widow character from the original movie? And that's a question we can't answer, of course, yet. But I did start thinking to myself, like, oh, maybe like, she hasn't been that character, but maybe she will become that character by the time the show ends. And the Emmy Rossum character will be traipsing across the world like in the movie, trying to track her down. That's season 2. I don't know if this is a multi-season show. I'm joking about that. But maybe it is. Who knows? In the very next scene, important thing happens here. This is when Danny, of course, we're picking up immediately from last season, Danny and Alice talk. And Alice, it's interesting that maybe that's my next question for you. So when you see Alice being like all goo-goo-eyed and telling Danny that Marshall wants her to speak out to protect him in some ways, and you see that Danny's getting really annoyed by this because she knows that she's still hung up on Marshall. How did you read that scene? She, of course, gets really frustrated at the end of it because she realizes again that this relationship with Danny is not as platonic as she probably hoped it would be. And I think that's the frustration we see in the final moments of that scene. But what do you think they're setting up there? Because for a big chunk of this episode, you think that she might be falling back into Marshall's trap. But at my gut was like, she's setting him up this whole entire time. So, I mean, I think she certainly still has feelings for him, but I think that
Marshall.
Marshall, right. Not Danny, correct. Good thing to correct me on that or to
I don't think I was correcting you. I was just making sure that I'm following along.
Okay. But I should specify because it could be either one in that particular case. But the whole thing with Marshall, I think she still has feelings for Marshall, but even now, even this early on, I felt like she's going to set up a trap for Marshall. I just felt like she was savvy enough at this point to not fall for it. But where were you at this point? Were you starting to think, oh no, she's going to fall into his trap. She's going to, fall for Marshall again. And
no, I thought that at a later point in the episode.
Okay.
But I didn't think it here. Here, it just seemed like she was very up in arms about this whole situation and her lack of power in it, because it's like no matter what she does, it's causing problems in one direction or the other.
I also like this scene because at the very end, when she runs off into the house, because just to put a point on the conversation, Danny's like, hey, why don't you come up to this lake house with me? Lake houses again. Come up to this lake house with me. And, you could stay in the other room if you need to. And it's just like so awkward and so obvious. And of course, it makes her very uncomfortable, the whole thing. But I do like the payoff here that just speaks to how aware and keyed in Alice is at all times, that her neighbor's like, oh, is that man trying to bother you? And she's like, no, he's okay. And then, of course, that's the woman that she calls at the end of the episode, is like, there's a man outside. I think he might have a gun. I think he was drunk. So there's a perfect example of something that's set up just in passing and just pays off in the very same episode. She seems like, I don't know what she was going to do when she got up to that room. She's obviously very frustrated, but instead she decides to channel that into pursuing Nora. And Nora turns out to be much more complicated, what happened to Nora in this investigation turns out to be way more complicated than we actually assumed based on our read of things last week. What did you think about her as she's doing this investigation? She goes and she meets with Nora's ex-partner. She talks to Danny about it also, by the way. In that initial conversation, mentions to Danny that Nora has covered something up. And then the partner, which is a very funny scene, by the way, where she's like keeps telling them not to hook up right in public. She's on the street, like have some class, for God's sakes. But she also explains that she was obsessed with this bracelet. And of course, that is the thing that has also kind of haunted this investigation and turns out to be a huge clue in what happens here by the end of the episode.
Yes, which I totally forgot to say last week. That I think, let me know if you disagree, I think they've made it clear that Isabelle's sister is actually her daughter.
Isabelle's sister is actually her daughter.
Remember that Catherine went to see in that motel room and she was messaging with her saying, don't go back.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I understand the point
Yeah.
you're making. I'm trying to do the math on this because didn't she know her sister? Like, I guess that couldn't have been possible. Is that true? Because of the age of the girl?
Yeah. I mean, this girl, I think, is 14 years old or so.
If she's 14, well, then that lines up perfectly. Yes. For some, and I think now I hadn't contemplated it at all until you mentioned it, but that makes perfect sense because one of the big questions I had in this very episode is what happened to that person, the daughter or son she had. And for some reason, I just presumed it was daughter. But that makes perfect sense. The math makes perfect sense there if she is indeed 14 years old because, well, actually, the murder happened 17 years ago. So she's around 16, which may still make sense.
She could still be. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. For some reason, when she kept saying my sister, I felt like they must have known each other. But that doesn't make any sense, right? Because this girl is now 30 years old.
Right.
And presumably Isabelle was almost exactly the same age as her. So if this girl is a teenager still, even a late teen, how could she have possibly known her sister? She would have, even then, if they were truly sisters, she would have been like 2 years old when she died. But maybe she was even younger than that. That makes more sense. That makes a lot more sense.
How did they get reconnected? I'm not sure. Maybe through the same trafficker? That would be awful.
Maybe she's been watching him. Well, I have a theory on what happened to that girl, which maybe that is something, maybe we save it for a little later on because I had a different theory of it. But now I think your theory is the better one because the math really makes sense there.
The thing that struck me, if that is the case, is that scene where Catherine says to the sister/daughter, Isabelle would never have wanted this for you.
Right.
It resonated when you think it's her little sister.
Right.
But the idea of like, if that's her daughter ending up in the same spot she was in, that's really heartbreaking.
It's truly horrible. Yes, you've made all of it. I mean, that was bad enough, but you've made it truly terrible. And I just, again, was just going for, in my head for some reason, because we've seen those pictures of Isabelle and, but of course they're 17 years old. So in my mind, she was just her older sister, but you're absolutely correct. She died 17 years ago. So there is plenty of time for this girl to have been raised up. And given what her age is, we're assuming she's like a late teen, mid-teen, then it doesn't make any sense that they would be a sister that she had a close relationship with. She wouldn't have barely known her when she died. So I think you're absolutely correct.
Well, I'm not nearly as spot on with my speculation as you are. So let's see if it bears out. But this is my current theory.
No, I think it's a good one because they're absolutely, when they brought up the specter of a missing child, I'm like, in my head, I hadn't even made that connection. I'm like, there definitely has to be a teen daughter out there. And I assume at this point that we have seen her before. And, of course, I was thinking about any teen girl we've seen in the show so far, and none of them lined up. But of course, Isabelle's quote unquote sister fits the bill perfectly. Next question I had for you, and was this scene, I think this is the next day now, Nora's in the office and Ed shows up, and Ed just more and more sketchy every time he shows up on the show. Yeah. So he's definitely covering up.
Yeah.
But his performance too is so funny. He's like, so obviously has an agenda every time he walks into the room. But what did you make of this? Where like when he shows up, Choi is suddenly like, "Oh, great, a man in the room,
energized." Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that. Whatever you said, let's do it. That's the best.
A targeted search or whatever it was.
Let's stop investigating the victim. Let's start investigating the perpetrator. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, they are definitely telegraphing that there's something very wrong with anything this guy is associated with. And hopefully we'll find out exactly what it is pretty soon.
Choi is very funny, though. This performance is very funny here. He pops up again very late in the episode where he's talking to Danny. Presumably, I think he's going to tell about how things are playing out with Marshall and also the case where they have to go and investigate that house, which of course is the wrap up of the episode. And but I love the fact that he's just like, I told you it was going to be a crazy one. But of course, many things happen between then and now. almost immediately after that, when Ed leaves, or when the men leave in general, Nora and Alice meet in the bathroom. And this was an interesting scene because last week on that, they left things in this ambiguous place where it's like, is Nora covering up something? Or you had the theory that Nora maybe wanted to give Alice some distance so that she could be a fallback when she took the blame for everything. Yeah. It turns out both theories were kind of wrong, but it's an interesting way for them to take the story that Nora said, basically saying like, I wanted you to help me with this investigation. You went and messed things up by pulling a gun on Marshall, and you are a liability until you can get Marshall off your back. And again, another question here throughout this whole entire episode, if that is intentionally a manipulation on Nora's part, because there's a lot of people who are manipulating each other in this episode, overtly or subtly. I think it's like a theme throughout this entire episode, and maybe the entire show in general. But regardless of whether she does it on purpose or not, she does get the wheels spinning in Alice's head about getting Marshall off her back and how to do that.
Yes, but I continue to not think that she's doing some sort of nefarious cover up of her involvement with Isabelle's investigation.
Oh yeah, no, at this point, I definitely agree. I couldn't understand, like maybe there was a reading of last week that was the intention. And I think that they left the show on that ambiguous hook.
I agree.
To, as a hook for the next episode. But at this point, I think it's pretty clear. And you see that Alice, of course, trusts her again, despite the fact that she overtly, in the first scene is talking to Danny, saying to him that Nora's covering something up. But she's come full circle because she's like, at the end of the episode, she's like, I'm just going to go grab some coffee, and has written in that note exactly. And of course, that note is for Nora. So yeah, they're on the same page again. And of course, importantly, Alice has also gotten Marshall off of the case, it seems to be as well. Okay, then we have multiple really interesting conversations where we start to find out more and more about Catherine. And also, what's the Hal, the lawyer, who is indeed played by the actor Campbell Scott. I confirmed that. I don't know if I confirmed it last week, but it's confirmed.
Yeah, I think we did it while we were talking.
And we did a bunch of revelations here. You had mentioned the fact that these people oftentimes might get like caught in Arrested Development when they have some kind of abuse when they're younger. And we might see that again, many parallels here in this episode between Alice and Catherine. And one of them is the fact that they are kind of trapped in this. Of course, their abuse or potential abuse is very different, but they're kind of trapped as these younger girls. We see Alice is unpacking this bag of memories of her and Jake Lacey's character Marshall when they were younger. And also we have this Catherine character who has actually forgotten large chunks of her history due to the abuse she suffered. She says because it was oxygen deprivation because she was strangled so many times. If that's true, that's truly terrifying. What a way to be brought up. But in both cases, they're trapped in this moment in their teen years. She is into pick a sticker, right? That's one of the things here. And she makes these little bedazzled photographs or sketches of the people she murders. She uses that to torture this guy. She also loves the curling iron. She likes curling irons as torture devices, and she likes to use stickers as torture devices of all things.
You knew during that whole conversation, she kept waving it around. Something was going to happen.
Just a matter of time. But what do you make about Hal and his excuses? Do you buy anything he says here, or do you think he's just trying to buy time? I have a question about something he says very late in the going, but you had brought up this idea of being a bystander or being an upstander.
Yeah.
And again, this is overtly something that happens in this episode. Very interesting that these episodes have been thematic within themselves. And I think that's something we see here is repeatedly the looking away, the looking the other way. Nora saying that I looked the other way for Ed, and Ed accuses her, well, you chose to look the other way. You knew what was going on and you looked the other way. And of course, Ed looked the other way, probably because he was told to look the other way by somebody else. And you have it, even overtly in this very episode, you have Alden knowing what's happening in the other room and just turns the music up, right? He's like looking the other way. So over and over again, people just look the other way. It even goes back to last episode where the woman who ran that house and was berated by Danny, how did you let her walk away? And she's like, I got 20 girls to look after. So some of them want to leave. That's just how it is, right? So there's this idea, again, of being a bystander or an upstander. But this is the most egregious, potentially, one here, Hal having this evidence and yet being like, he's a monster, he's a terrible person. You can help me take him down. I've been wanting to do something about this. And how do you feel? Like, is any of this sincere, the way he's describing things to her?
So at the time, I thought none of it was sincere, except I thought he was telling the truth about whatever happened to Isabelle. And for a second, I actually thought he was going to say, don't you remember, Catherine, you murdered Isabelle.
I have the same theory. Yes.
Put it on the list of things you can't remember. So,
exactly. Yes.
So for a minute, I was like, wow, this show's going to take an unexpected turn.
Yes.
But I did feel like he was telling the truth about whatever his knowledge is of the circumstances of what happened to Isabelle. Whether that is aligned with what actually happened, I don't know. But I felt like he was telling the truth about what he understood about what happened. The rest, in the moment, the stuff on the laptop and we'll team up to take him down together, I wasn't sure any of it was true. We come to find out that the stuff on the laptop is there. I still, though, am not sure that he intended to use that against the Easton family, but it feels like maybe he would have left it with Catherine and been like, well, if I lost my laptop, I lost my laptop. I got to go.
Right.
I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, at first, I just think he's a straight up bad guy and that he hasn't done anything when he could have, and in a very black and white way of thinking, he's obviously just part of the problem. But then there's yeah. And then a couple of things happened there that changed my mind a little bit. One was that when she shows him the dress and he has this emotional reaction to it. And how did you read that? Because one version of it is he could just like be like, oh my God, I'm never getting out of here. It's like a purely selfish
That's what I thought.
reaction. But then towards the very end, when he knows that things are really, really dire for him, and it's not that he doesn't realize that she literally is putting the syringe in his arm, like, I'm going to OD you right now. And he said, I was trying to protect her. And who do you think he means when he says protect her?
Thinking, I don't know. Did he mean Isabelle somehow?
Well, that's the thing that was curious to me. At first, in the moment, I was like, is he saying I was trying to protect her, protect the Hope Davis character, Easton's
That would be
daughter?
the logical answer.
Right. But then does she really need protection? And then I thought it must be somebody younger. And then I thought it must be the daughter. But then it would be interesting. But now I don't believe that anymore, because if your theory is correct, and I think it is, then Isabelle's quote unquote sister is her daughter. And then if he was keeping tabs on the sister, you know what I mean? Then he would have known all this. It seems because
he's doing a lousy job of protecting her daughter. If that's
exactly, because that's what I thought. That my read of it was that he's actually trying to protect the daughter, this unwanted pregnancy, which is so central to this whole plot of this episode. And he was maybe sincerely building a case against them and had all this evidence and was waiting for a way to get it out.
What if the daughter is Jay Easton's daughter? Is that possible?
That is definitely possible. That's it could also be his daughter himself, but I think it's more likely that it's Easton's daughter and that he was trying to protect her. But then again, if this, and it really logically makes sense that it is that girl, then how could he, like you said, he's doing a horrible, horrible job of keeping tabs on her when he allows her to go into become a teen prostitute.
Right. I will say I did not think he was being sincere about the wedding dress. And when she turns around to put it back in the closet, he kind of like rolls his eyes or something like that. And that's part of what made me think that.
The next thing I wanted to get your thoughts on was, we get the scene where we have Danny and Marshall talking, and Danny explains to Marshall, like, to leave Alice alone. You want Alice to lie for you. By the way, I will never lie for you, and all that. And Marshall kind of knows what's up with Danny, so he kind of implies that as well. But then Danny, this guy can't keep a secret, by the way, tells him about
I know
the S&M site. And how did you read that? Because this whole episode is about people like leaving clues in the open to manipulate someone into doing what they want them to do. It happens over and over again over the course of the episode, but things don't always pay out the way that people have planned when, as they're setting these things up. So what I'm curious about there is, did you read it as her wanting Danny to blab about this to Marshall? Because that is a version of it, right? This is all part of her setup for Marshall, is letting Danny tell him this. But I got to tell you that later on, when he brings it up, she seems truly shocked. So I think that maybe it helped with her plan, but it wasn't planned out by her.
Yeah, I don't think she was thinking that many steps ahead.
Because she does like pretty, Machiavellian here with her plan. But I did feel like that did seem like a true shock when she heard him say those words. And I know I'm not supposed to feel anything for Marshall because he is a true scumbag, and of course, completely lacking in awareness. And also, he shows like the worst aspects of himself, even in this very episode. But he does still have feelings for her, right? In that moment when Danny says, by the way, she still loves you, and he's alone, he's not performing that hurt or that confusion. He is, that's legitimately his reaction, right? So I think he still wants her back. Of course, he also probably wants her to be a version of herself that she no longer is. And speaking of the person she used to be and she is now, let's go to her bag. What did you make of this? She has to get drunk. Well, first of all, does she need to drink? In my reading of things, I was like, does she need to get drunk just to be able to have this interaction with him? Or is that all part of her ruse because she wants to like have the alcohol on her breath when he arrives, like as part of this whole setup? But then she does seem to like take a big breath and then open that bag. Were these photographs convincing, by the way? Do you think that Jake Lacey with his bangs was convincing as a teenage Jake Lacey?
I liked the picture of her with the straight hair. I thought they looked young in that one.
They did, yes.
Yeah.
There's a particular one where she has like her hair back, and I got to assume that was a picture of her when she was a teenager. I can't imagine her styling herself to look that young at this moment. His pictures definitely look like they were shot like that afternoon with bad wigs.
That's wild, though, with AI being what it is now.
That's a good point.
They could have easily created. Here's, one of him at a baseball game and one of her at a baseball game, and now they're at a baseball game together, know?
Right. Well, I think, they could just Photoshop that, so that's possible.
Yeah.
And how do you think this whole scene played out? He shows up, and she is obviously trying to seduce him. It's an interesting dynamic that plays out there. And then she uses that, right? She's like, it goes back to the idea like that Emily Dickinson poem where it's in there saying that the owner picks up the gun, but also in that same episode, we have Catherine saying to that lawyer character that I want you to use me. And then she echoes almost the same words. So we see all this paralleling of women who are using their supposed subservience as a weapon against these guys who want to indulge that fantasy. But it was, so it's interesting that they're paralleling all these things. But of course, things don't go the way Marshall expected.
Well, first of all, as far as the alcohol, seeing how this whole scene played out, I'm not sure she was ever drinking aside from what we saw her drink. I think she might have just taken a bath in the liquor.
Oh, exactly. By the way, this is very funny to me that the whole like dousing herself and
yeah.
I don't, maybe that's a cake for him, but I thought that whole sequence was very funny. But of course, it's all a setup. This culminates, by the way, when she gets him flat on his back and she's like pours
bananas.
He's like, well, you're going to be drunk now. I mean, he's already probably drank enough to, blow a drunk on the breath. But when she pours a quart of whiskey down his throat, he's definitely too drunk to drive at this point.
But so, okay, I understand what her plan is, but this was my big question. And it's not that big a question, I suppose. But what is the idea here? Nora told her, make this problem about you pulling the gun on your boyfriend go away, because otherwise you can't work on this anymore. He's telling her, call my supervisor so I can get this promotion. So we're led to believe, right, that she's considering doing that because that's going to solve both her problems. But then instead, she sets him up in this way and sends him back out onto the street where the police have a record response time, apparently.
Yes.
Because literally, how long does it take to walk away? This is like a New York City logistics thing again, I guess, that I'm getting hung up on. But how long does it take to walk out the apartment door and on your way to whatever? I don't know if he drove there or took the train or what the deal is. But either way, you don't really loiter outside the building, right? You're on the way. But the police come super fast. And now,
isn't it like a 2-minute? I heard there's like a 2-minute response time average in New York. Is that
yeah, but I think they're like prioritized too, what you're calling about. So like calling about a drunk guy on the sidewalk?
With a gun. She says he has a gun though.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So then they bring him in, they find out he's a police officer, and now he's like in bigger trouble. And that's the way she's solving this problem. Do I understand it properly?
Well, the interesting thing about it is, for me, it's interesting. It could be also considered like a plot hole. But for me, it's interesting that they really don't explain it, because you could imagine that he is going to be so disturbed by this course of events and just got arrested for being drunk in front of her building the day before that, he fully understands that she has reversed this power play on him. And I think that's what disturbs him the most. I don't think he's like making a formal complaint and he's going to have an investigation and ask her for, I think he's just not going to show up to work. But
they said that, right?
Right.
That
I think he's just going to be like, I don't want to be on this case anymore. I think that he's going to kind of opt out rather than any kind of, because I actually thought.
So instead of doubling down that like first she pulled a gun on me, now she did this, he's just going to back away and not get the promotion?
Well, I mean, the only person who gets she pulled a gun on me is only his word of mouth. And now all of a sudden he's in front of her house, wasted. And he is like, he was in rehab recently, like a known, alcohol is a known problem for work. Like it's not like a personal problem. It's like actually probably a contingency for his work for him to stay sober. So this is a very complicated thing for him to try. And then he's going to start to explain it. No, you don't understand. She lured me up there. And they're like, you were talking to her on camera. Like she very much intentionally sets it up so that she's on camera with him earlier in the episode. So yeah, I think, honestly, I think she could have had an even more airtight version of this where she could have triggered him in some way, which is I thought was going to happen.
I thought so too.
She's going to get him on camera. I actually suspected like she's going to somehow mention the Danny thing. It's going to flip him out. He's going to shove her. He's going to hit her. And then, she showed up with bruises on herself earlier, and everyone's going to see the video and be like, oh, I see. This is what's going on. He probably lied about he's the abuser. And that, she could have tried to make something like that look more believable, potentially. This is a very circuitous way to get what she wants. But
yeah. Okay.
It is, but I mean, like, it is kind of does the same thing without getting him potentially arrested for abusing her or something. If like he just says, the cops are just like, what were you doing there? And he doesn't want to answer the question. And they're like, well, you need to dry out and maybe you just take some time off from work. And if she's like around the corner, literally from, they knew last week they were very close to catching the perpetrator. That's not going to take long to, he only has to take a couple of weeks off before this case might resolve.
Okay.
That's how I read it. I don't think this is done yet. But I also don't think that he's going to go and make a big stink about it. And then it's only going to make him look even worse, considering everyone basically suspects that he beat her severely and he's not supposed to be hanging out with her, presumably, although she didn't press charges.
Okay. This all seems a little convoluted to me, but it's okay.
It certainly is complicated. I totally agree. Okay, the last thing she pulls out of this bag, as soon as he leaves, she decides to put on a robe, take one more thing out of the bag, one more memory from her memory bag. Interesting that she puts on the same skirt and everything, like her high school skirt. She is very much going all out for this seduction. But the last thing she pulls out is the sonogram picture of her own pregnancy. And that makes her think about what do they call these boxes?
I think they just called them baby box.
That they have at the shelters, right? At the abused women's shelters. And interesting, I never knew how these things worked, but interesting the idea that you basically get a matching bracelet so that you can prove that you are who you say you are if you go to reclaim the child within a certain amount of time. And then, of course, it made me think, is this something she just kind of knows, or maybe something she researched or does she also have a teen daughter out there? So that'd be very strong parallel between these, or a parallel, I should say, a teenage child. We don't know if it's a daughter, but what did you think of of that reveal and how it kind of ties these two women together?
Yeah, I think they've been establishing like parallels between Alice's experiences and Catherine and now Isabelle's experiences. So I liked the parallel, and I like that it also kind of shows why Alice would be so invested in all of this, because it's all kind of triggering or resonating for her as to like similar experiences that she has had.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, of course, about those two things. Oh, but that's the other question I was going to ask you too, is who do you suspect might be the dad in this particular case?
And Alice's baby? Oh.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is, do you think it might be Marshall? Because Marshall has a version of the story that his mom,
right,
has told him that, I didn't know that about you, that you had shown up and you were pregnant, and that's why you had this issue with my mom. Do you think that's true, or do you think that maybe Marshall got her pregnant? Because from the little we know, and there's some haziness here, they dated together when they were younger. Then there was some kind of falling out with the family, and then they dated again when they were older. So I wonder if in that interim, did she have a child that she raised partially, or gave up for adoption? Or
I didn't think so, because he said that she got kicked out
of the house
by her father because she was pregnant when she was 14. So to me, that tracked that it all predated her knowing Marshall at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I'm just trying to make things too neat here, but I was wondering if maybe it was something that he was actually responsible for. But it makes sense that she might have ended up in the halfway house in the first place,
right,
or in the group home because of the pregnancy. And then that's when she then had this adoptive family that she stayed with. And she still could have had the child. Maybe she had the child before or during her time in the group home, and then was adopted afterwards. So he never knew about it. Yeah. So she might have, I should say, a 17-year-old child out there, or whatever, approximately 18, 20-year-old child out there. Oh, a scene I wanted to circle back to that I kind of missed. Maybe it happens towards the end of the episode anyway, but I did love it. In an episode that there's kind of some odd comedy here and there repeatedly in this show, and not tons of it in this particular episode, but I did love this particular moment when Nora is using Danny. In this case, it's again this idea of like manipulating, but in the open. And they seem to be on board. At first, I was reading this: is Nora just manipulating Danny because Danny just constantly does the opposite of what we tell him to do, and he plays tic-tac-toe, as he proudly said earlier. So is she trying to say, don't release that photograph,
right,
as a way to get him to do it because she knows he's going to do the opposite? But I love that final moment in the elevator when they both kind of look at each other like, which of course is like, this is very much in the open. He's like, I get what you're saying. And she's like, don't release that photograph. Yeah, and then we get very close to the end of the episode. Marshall, at least momentarily, is not on the case, and I assume he's going to distance himself more and more from the investigation, at least for the remainder of the series. And we have this brutal scene at the house where Catherine, aggressively accuses Hal of being this bystander, allowing these horrible things to happen on his watch. She is dead set on killing him. There is that ambiguity. Who is he trying to protect? Why is he allowing himself? Literally, he thinks that she's about to inject it into him and will not tell her what she wants to know. Of course, she's been triggered, of course, because she's now seen these videos and now has proof that this guy had this time, has seen this, knows all this. There is, of course, very importantly, we have to not forget, like Catherine has, that he says, you don't remember what happened that night? And telling her that he couldn't have been him. He was not in the room when it happened. And of course, we know that, I think this is important, two things. Catherine has admitted that she has some memory problems with that period of time. And maybe we heard from a psychiatrist that trauma can make people completely black out, especially when they're young, whole sections of their biography, thinking that what's his name's daughter might not remember everything that happened back in episode 2, but she is able to answer those questions that Alice asked her. So did Catherine block something out because it's so traumatic, because maybe she was involved in the killing? Because very importantly, she admits that she didn't have a platonic friendship with Isabelle. She was in love with her. And was Isabelle going to run off with this guy because she was pregnant by him, whatever? And did she flip out in like a jealous rage or something? So if something like that had happened, then is it possible that she has even hidden that from herself? But again, who is Hal saying he's trying to protect? Regardless, she doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And the way the scene plays out, it's interesting that Alden sets off his oxygen alarm. So she goes running to his side to check on him. And it turns out it is only to warn her that there's an APB for her. And then he's also hurt. He's like, have you been lying to me about your name? So, of course, you got to assume that a lot is falling on this guy all at once. Yeah. This is when Hal attempts an escape. And no one's going to think that this guy OD'd himself in this particular manner. Not where I would put that syringe if I was going to.
Some people have needle things and some people have eye things. And this was like...
It's both at the same time.
Yeah. And I wanted to look away so badly. And I started looking away. And then I kind of scolded myself of like, you're supposed to watch this and talk about it. You can't not watch parts of it. But I really didn't want to watch it.
They did. It was both not as bad as it could have been because they did cut away in the worst possible moment. Yeah. But then the aftermath of it is as gory as it could be. Yes.
Well, I will say about the scenes leading up to this, I was happy that at least she did ask what happened to Isabelle before injecting him, because I thought she was going to be so carried away with rage that she would just inject him. And I thought, no, you got to find out. Although her questions could have, she could have probed a little further.
Yeah, you did not get enough information. For sure.
Not enough information, but at least something. I think it's interesting to go back to your original question about what the relationship really is between her and Alden. She could have ignored that oxygen alarm when it tripped, absolutely. But instead she dropped everything and ran. So I think that does show something about how she feels. I also thought, these are just all stray thoughts that I'm collecting before we move on. I also thought when she made that comment, and this might have not have been this scene, it might have been a prior scene with Hal, where she says, oh, you must be hungry. I've got food around here. I'm like a squirrel. I hide it and then I don't remember where I put it. And I thought like, oh, that must be something that she did when she was younger because she didn't know. Like she couldn't just eat whenever she wanted to eat. So she was squirreling food away so she would have it in case she got hungry. And that made me sad.
Yeah, that was actually really clever. And I mean, that's something you hear about in like a group home type situation. It's not only in group homes, you hear about it where people might just have a very large family. And it's like, if I don't hide my potato chips, the other kids will find them and eat them all. So. But yeah, definitely something that she got accustomed to over the course of her experiences. Another interesting parallel here that I thought of is when she's describing her relationship with, so many things are very well layered in the character and it keep repeating themselves, these motifs. And I thought it was really interesting where she's describing how she had this affection for Isabelle. And Isabelle said, you can look, but you can't touch. It's just that was their agreement, basically. That was a one-directional relationship. which, by the way, was the thing she had basically said to Alden earlier on, right? So that is like, again, she gets to play out being in that position of power. And of course, we know that that is her entire, modus operandi this whole entire time. She has inverted all these things that oppressed her before, and she's used it to trap these men and then kill them, right? Of course, not with Alden. Of course, she seems sincere, but it's just interesting that she's taken these things, memories and abuses she had, and have flipped them, the dynamic the other way. And then, Troy and Danny show up at the house. I like when Troy's behind Alden, being like, put up your hands. And Alden says, should you tell him or should I? But Alden is there. She did not kill Alden, of course. And she leaves things in a very displayed way. And it seems at this point that she knows that the noose is tightening and she is like prepared for it, which leads me to my last question for you. I think my last question, which is the very end where the two women end up at the exact same drop off, this shelter, and the stories come full circle. She's been there earlier. Do you think she's just coincidentally there? Like this is where she's been before under a different alias, and she just by happenstance has shown up at the same place when Alice is shown there? Or do you think she's there intentionally, I should say, because she knows that the cops are closing in and she wants to actually have this conversation with Alice? Did you have a take on that? Like, is she in on this or not?
I assumed it was the first thing, but I am interested in the second option.
Yeah, I actually also think that this is a coincidence and that Alice is going to play like innocent, and just start asking her questions. Oh, what brings you here and whatever, and then feeling her out, but knowing full well who she is. I think that's how it's going to play out as well. But it would be, if she somehow was ahead of them all and was there to have some kind of confrontation with Alice, that would be really intriguing. But I don't think that's actually the case, because how could she possibly know that this is the woman who's investigating her? We haven't seen her like with her hot on her heels, and she somehow has spotted her and is somehow tracking her in reverse. But I was intrigued to be like, what next episode when it starts, are they going to be talking to each other aware of what's going on? Or is Alice going to have like kind of what do they call it when you have more information, the other person, I forget what it's called, but when you have that imbalance of knowledge, and curious to know if how Alice takes it, addresses it next time. Because she could just put the cuffs on her right now, right? There's an APB.
Yeah,
a picture out there, so. But I have a feeling that's not the way things are going to play out. Okay, you mentioned you had some questions for me. What were those questions?
No, my main question was, what is the deal with her and Marshall? Because it just felt like a very, as I said, convoluted or roundabout way to accomplish her goal. But maybe that's what it is. Like, to me, this wouldn't necessarily make that problem go away, but maybe it will.
Yeah, no, I think that Marshall's in enough trouble where it doesn't necessarily like ruin I shouldn't say ruin, doesn't necessarily end his career, but this is a really bad look, right? Like if everyone's understanding is you beat up your ex-girlfriend, but that she never pressed charges for whatever reason, and then you throw her under the bus saying, oh, she was erratic, she pulled a gun on me, whatever, and then the next week you're coming out of her house drunk, and you have an alcohol problem that you literally just returned from rehab. I don't think anyone's going to be like, we want to put you in the head of another investigation anytime soon.
Right.
So it's more, but again, it's all the things I just said. It's not like, and then he goes to jail. I think that's the point, right? It's not like none of those things I just said will get him thrown into the slammer. It's like, it is just like your boss is not going to trust you with any evidence or any investigation, period. There's, better options. You'll be pushing paper because there's too much. You can't possibly be on this case at the same time. Yeah. And I think that's it. Any guesses as to what happens next week?
I always say this, I'm just along for the ride rather than speculating, but I really am excited to see where it picks up given the last scene of this episode. I think, 3 episodes left. This feels like the type of show where the 7th episode is going to be huge, although I could be wrong.
No, I agree. But it's interesting because Yeah.
So then I would think next week is going to be a lot of setup, is what I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, potentially she is going to arrest her immediately, but then it seems like there's too much show left for that. But then, like, for her to just be on the lam again, is she going to let her out? Is she going to give her the evidence? Are they going to work with her to take down Easton? It seems like that's the thing that might be where Alice goes rogue and starts working an investigation on the side, which might be the direction the show goes in, because she knows if she brings her in, they've already explicitly said that in this very episode, that they're like, we're just looking for the perpetrator. They don't want to investigate these other things. So maybe Alice knows that it's more useful to have her out while she investigates this broader conspiracy than to bring her in right away. But then, man, that's pretty, this woman can disappear. So it's a very sketchy thing to allow her to be out there.
I mean, I think there's also a part of Alice that approves of the vigilante justice, right? So I think she might have her own conflicting feelings about whether she should arrest her just yet.
Exactly. Next week's episode is called They Make a Noise Like Feathers. If that means anything. All right, Sana, we have 3 more to go. Very exciting.
I can't wait.
Oh, I sent you, this is probably going to be our next watch, but it's in October. So we have a dead month for September because this show's wrapping up at the end of August. So we'd have to figure out what to do in September. Maybe we watch some of these movies I've been suggesting. We can watch Black Widow. We could do one. We can watch the drama. The invite might be available by then as well. So that takes up 3 weeks. And then we only need one more before we have this new show that I sent you, which was War, which is supposed to be a fictionalized version of a British series on HBO. So everybody can watch this. But it is a fictionalized drama about, like, supposedly in the world of the show, the biggest celebrity divorce in history. And I was like, oh, I think Sona will really enjoy this. Mm-hmm. So we will check it out. And it's called War, by the way, and it's an anthology. So every year it's supposed to be another very high profile legal case. And they have already started to shoot season 2 with a different cast. So it's an anthology, right? Every year will be a different high profile case, which is now the new thing. If you can't get like The Pit, where you can have an actual serialized show, you do an anthology where you can kind of get people on the hook, like on a annual. They're trying to get these shows to come out on a regular basis. So, and by the way, British shows are really good at this, like knocking out one every season. So
yeah, for sure,
they're able to pull that off. But, I'm very curious to see this one. And yeah, we'll see what else is happening in September. I'm sure we'll find things to watch. All right, Sona, thanks again. See you on the Patreon.
Thank you. I'll see you there.
And see all of you out there on the Patreon too. So check it out. Link is in the show notes if you want to join the conversation. Thanks again, Sona. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.